by my ass.
I'm only 4. Bonjour, Monsieur Pussycat.
Cracking toast, Robert.
Start spreading the news.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the short podcast about short films. I am your host, and we are discussing the Academy Award for Best Animated Short. Today's episode is about the 72nd year of the award at the 76th Academy Awards, which celebrates the films of 2003. Today's guest is back for the 7th time. You last heard him discussing A Sunday in New York and the nominees of 1983. Please welcome back Ronaldo Sosa. Hello, Ronaldo.
Hello, it's been 20 years now. Probably the longest I've gone without being here.
Yeah, I just have so many people I want to bring onto the podcast and everything that it's like the people who were on like 4 or 5 times in like the early years just get like spread out more and more because I keep wanting to bring more people into the podcast family.
Yeah.
But yes, it's always great to bring you back, especially since you're one of the most educated in terms of this category. So just remind us, what is your familiarity with the Best Animated Short category?
Well, I've seen not all of the nominees, but most of them. I still have not finished. And I started, I think it was last year at the beginning, mostly because one day I was watching all of David Lynch's shorts, and then you said, "Oh, you should watch all the animated shorts nominees too." And I was like, "Oh, yeah." And then I started, and I watched like 80, like all the way to 2000s in a month, and then it's been like almost 2 years, and I still haven't finished.
You only
Because
have a few years left, I noticed.
yeah, I am in 2015 right now, so like 5, because I've already seen all the 2020s ones. But it's just like I'm that way with a lot of things. Like I become obsessed with something, and then if I don't finish it quickly, sometimes I lose interest. Like this year in the summer, I was doing a Kurosawa marathon, and I watched all of his movies. Like I was going chronologically, and I finished like everything until The Hidden Fortress, and then I just haven't watched anything else.
Well, at least you should try to finish them before I bring you back for your inevitable 2020s episode. I think it's probably going to end up being Windshield Wiper, but I'm not totally certain.
Yeah,
But yeah,
I will try to do that because I will probably be the last, and yeah, I'll do that.
But yeah, you only have a few years left. You could knock it out in a day.
Yeah, I was even gonna do it today, but then I didn't.
It's okay. You have time. Like your last episode in terms of Best Animated Short, at least, that's going to be recorded probably in April. So you have 6 months to
I
watch
do.
like 4 hours of short films, maybe
Maybe
2
even
hours.
less.
Yeah, probably more like 2 hours, but still, you've got time. Just a short, just
I
one
just
last
need the
stretch.
motivation.
You got this. I believe in you. But yes, despite that, you are still very well educated on this category. You have seen it through its good days. You've seen it through its bad days. You've seen it in the 30s. You've seen it up to the 2020s, excluding a few years. And so it's like you know what you're in for. And
I do.
before we get to what this year has to offer, which is a very eclectic year, just to put it lightly, we are very short film centric here on this show, but there is also a Best Animated Feature category at the Academy Awards. So to be fair to them, Ronaldo, I will list off the names of the nominees for Best Animated Feature in this year, and I want you to tell me in just one word what you think of them, or simply say you haven't seen it. Are you ready?
Okay. Yeah.
First, we have the winner, which is Finding Nemo.
It'll be hard to say in one word, so I'll just say that I saw it when I was a kid and I really liked it, but I don't remember like I remember what happens, but I don't really have any clear feelings because I haven't seen it since I was like 7.
You're breaking your rules here already. Number 2, we have Brother Bear.
Haven't seen it.
Number 3, we have the Triplets of Belleville.
Haven't seen it.
Great. Now let's get to the shorts. Our first nominee and the year's winner is Harvie Krumpet, directed by Adam Elliott. This is the first and only nomination and win for Elliott, and his origins come from where all great things do, the son of a clown on an Australian prawn farm in Berwick. Unfortunately, like in the 1984 Best Actress category, the farm went bankrupt and the family moved to Melbourne. Elliott had an early interest in art, but something that impacted his work severely is what's called a hereditary psychological tremor. As Elliott puts it, everyone's hands shake, but his hands shake more than most. And something like this isn't good for an artist typically, but it's even worse for a veterinarian, which was one of Elliott's other career aspirations. But he incorporated the shakiness into his personal style. In his stop motion work, he would make his models larger, so it's easier for him to move and mold them around in small ways. For his drawings, it would result in shakier lines, which Elliott embraced. By the age of 24, Elliott graduated from the Victorian College of Arts and had made his first short film, Uncle. From there, he had built a relationship with Australian government-funded film programs, which backed all his future projects, up to and including today's nominee, as well as his most famous work, his feature film called Mary and Max, which I consider the greatest animated film ever made. Nowadays, Adam Elliott has been at work on another feature film called Memoir of a Snail, set to release next year. Elliott's work often focuses on people who are typically outcast or shunned by society, usually via some physical or mental disability, because most animation tends to steer away from difficult situations, and he wants to portray those things head on and force us to relate to these people. Across his work, he's discussed autism, deafness, depression, cerebral palsy, Alzheimer's, and Tourette syndrome. His films are often also inspired by people he knows, with his first 3 shorts called Uncle, Cousin, and Brother being in fact inspired by Elliott's uncles, cousins, and brothers, drawing from real-life experiences in part, but never being afraid to embellish, often repeating the mantra, the truth should never get in the way of a good story. On Harvie Krumpet, the film was his biggest endeavor yet. It cost nearly 10 times as much as his previous films, losing the minimalistic nature of his work for something larger and more dynamic, though not losing that Elliott touch. Also, while his shorts were black and white, Harvie Krumpet allows itself tinges of color. The film was released to immediate international acclaim and paved the way for Elliott's eventual feature film. The film is about the titular Harvie Krumpet. He's a boy with Tourette syndrome. He carried facts around in a book hung around his neck. He was born in Poland, but once his house burns down, his parents die, and Nazis invade, he ends up moving to Australia and ends up going from job to job, collecting more and more facts along the way, and smoking many cigarettes. The film essentially becomes a series of events and happenings in Harvey's life. He becomes a nudist, his head becomes a magnet, he steals chickens, gets an ass tattoo, gets married, loses a testicle, adopts a child with no hands, and ends up living at a nursing home. One last fun fact, Adam Elliott is gay, and he is currently the only LGBT winner in the category, with only 2 other people having been nominated. Ronaldo, what do you think of Harvie Krumpet?
I love Harvie Krumpet. I think that it's very sweet and also depressing, but not like excessively depressing. It has like a way of balancing like all of the really bad things that happen to Harvey and also like feeling overall very humorous, but also not like making fun of him for like I think that it's very kind to Harvey while also like um I don't know, I just think that it's a really sweet movie, showing how like if you just keep living, maybe good things would happen, and even if they don't, you'll be kind of okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like Adam Elliott's films always have this very darkly comic sensibilities to them, where it's just like you have these really just terrible things happen to these people who do not deserve these terrible things happen to them, but they're always framed in such a way. Such a very dry humor, like very Australian in terms of its humor, and that just makes it so funny, despite the fact that you also want to cry. And I think one of the perfect ways to um that exemplifies this is early on in the film. It's like um Harvie Krumpet's parents and flee their house as it's on fire, and then end up freezing to death in the snow. Oh, and then immediately after we're told this, we get a title card of like one of his facts, and it's just like frogs are the only species that can survive after being frozen and thawed. And it's
Humans
just
do
like,
not.
yeah, and it's just like it's it's so fucked up, but it's funny. Like
Yeah,
just the
and like
jarring.
even in that same scene, like when they say that they died, it's like they were on the bike and they said like, oh, and like they died frozen and they were naked.
Mhm. Yeah, it's just and throughout the whole short, you get a lot of these little moments like this, and especially the little fact title cards that pop up. I think those are consistently the funniest parts of the film, just because they are so jarring. They just put a stop to everything just to put this on screen, and it's always just some very ironic thing that it's telling you. And it's like, and it's also just a great way to transition the shorts as well, or not the shorts, but transition between
The
scenes, do a time
sections.
jump, things like that. It's just like it's always they're very well utilized. Nice. And I think appreciating that helped me like love this film a lot more than I did on my first watch years ago. It's like this is just another great film by Adam Elliott, and it's just like I also went and watched Uncle, Cousin, and Brother, and like I said, Mary and Max is already one of my favorite animated film ever. So I'm an Adam Elliott fan. Holy, he is great. I need to watch his one other short film that he's made, and I'm so excited for his next feature film, which has Jackie Weaver and I think Cody Smith McPhee in it, which is nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I should also watch all of that because I've only seen Harvey Krumpet. I have not seen Mary and Max, even
Oh,
though I know how much you love it.
you gotta
And
watch it. Like it,
yeah.
the two main voices in it are Philip Seymour Hoffman and Toni Collette, and they
Oh,
are excellent in their roles. It's
yeah. I should really watch more animated films in general because I haven't seen like outside of the mainstream things and like Ghibli movies, I haven't seen that many like indie animated movies and I sh really should.
oh, I could make you a list if you ever want one.
Yeah.
But yeah, back to Harvey Krumpet. Uh, so like pretty much all of Adam Elliott's work ends up like I was saying, it just ends up being kind of like a description of different traits of the characters or different events that happens to them. And it's like on paper, it feels like it really shouldn't work. Like it really shouldn't like it's it just ends up being like endless exposition, but it's like it so carefully weaves in like undercurrents of that emotion, like that either the really dark, depressing stuff or that dark humor that becomes really hilarious. And it's just like it these films are all just so expertly written and end up not being just so funny, but also just so profound. Like each of film of his has some like really profound moment that makes you just rethink the entire rest of the film, or just
Yeah.
puts it on a new level. It's always just so fascinating.
My favorite moment like that is like towards the end when he's having the conversation with the woman that doesn't go out because she's embarrassed about the tumor that she
Mm-hmm.
has. And then they like talk all night long. And then they fall asleep together. And like then what Jeffrey Rush says in the narration is like, oh, after he woke up, he realized that he had some more living to do. And then she thought that she'd had enough and she killed herself. And like that's the only time that Harvey talks. And he's just like, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's God, that scene specifically was just so everything. And also just the whole ending in general, like where he at the end of it, he takes off all his clothes again, says fuck the rules, and then just goes to sit on the fake bus stop they have at the nursing home. And it's just like, God, what a way to end that film. This film. It's
Yeah.
just,
And then like he knows that the bus isn't coming, but like that's fine.
yeah, it's just very life affirming. It ends up being like, in face of just all the stuff that Harvey has to face, it's just like he's an example that's just like, there's never, like, just never give up, never let your life bring you down or whatever. Or just like, there's, just find what's worth living for, like, or what you want to do with your life and do that.
Yeah, because even like a lot of terrible things happened, but he did have a happy marriage until she
Mhm.
died, and she had a daughter, and he had a good relationship with her, and yeah, so he did have a somewhat happy life.
Mhm. Yeah, it's like, yeah, the best films that like try to portray a life or anything are the ones that end up being very strangely comedic. And it's just like, I'm actually thinking about Monster, or no, not Monster. Um Perfect Perfect Days. That's it. I just watched it at a film fest recently, and without spoiling
Oh,
it.
okay. When you said monster, you're talking about the new Koreeda movie. I thought you were talking about the Charlize Theron
No,
monster.
no.
And I'm like, what?
I so I said Monster, but I meant Perfect Days by Vim Vendors, um, which came out this year. There, and but I saw both of them. I just got them mixed up. But Perfect Days. It's, without spoiling anything major about it, it's a film about a man who he makes his living cleaning toilets all around Tokyo. Oh, and the film itself just focuses not just on like the pride he takes in his work, but also just the different relationships he has with all the different people around the city. And it's just a very, like, and there are some people in the film who like judge him for like his career and everything, because like, oh, he's a guy who just cleans fucking toilets all day. Hey, he must be fucking miserable. Well, but no, he's so fucking happy. He is so glad to have the life he has. As it's just like, and there's some emotional complexities in there which I won't get into, but it's a great film, and this is a great film too. And yeah, it's nice to have films that feel good without feeling fake about it. Like, it feels like, yeah, he has a right to be happy, and it's infectious. This isn't Harvie Krumpet is an infectious film, and I love Harvey. We should all be like Harvey.
We should.
Hmm.
And he deserves better.
He does. Do you have a favorite, either a favorite fact with a K, or just a favorite part of like Harvey's story?
Well, my favorite part of the story would be that part I mentioned, the conversation with the woman at the end. I also I also like the section after he adopts his daughter. I like the fact that we have a stay-at-home dad because he quits his job and he just raises her, and that's great. We should
Hmm.
have more of that.
Yeah,
But I don't remember like a specific fact. I didn't write any of them down, but I like them all mostly.
yeah. I asked that question, and then I realized I didn't really remember any outside of the one I mentioned about the frogs, because I specifically put that in my mind, like, I want to mention this as like an example. Oh, but my favorite character aspects about Harvey, or parts of the film, is one, I love his fucking magnet head.
Yeah.
Two, I love every single scene where he does like environmental activism, whether he's stealing the chickens or doing graffiti or things like that. It's all very fun and silly, and it's just like, while still being, it's like, yeah, fuck the man, steal the chickens.
Yeah, and I also like his friendship with the guy in the nursing home
Hmm.
when they were putting, and also like they were putting that puppet show together, and he just drops dead right there.
Yeah, it's Yeah, I like them all. I I I really like. I like all of these characters. These are all like
They're
even
good.
even these like just one scene characters. It's like they all are just so fully given these whole personalities, which is again something that Adam Elliott constantly succeeds at. It's just like
Yeah,
he
like his mom, who might be also like very tragic character in a way.
Mhm. Oh yeah, like his like the mental illness and everything, and like of course her tragic death. It's just like, but still, it's like she is such a fully formed character, even though she only has like 2 3 minutes that she's on screen before dying. It's just like God, Adam Elliott, you're great. We love you, and thank you for being gay. It's always nice to see.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, like you said that there were two other gay people nominated. Who are they?
Uh, One is Ryan Larkin, who is bisexual, and then let me look up the other one. It's one of the nominees for Genius Loci, or however you pronounce that one.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I don't know his name, but I know who it is because for some reason that year, I looked up pictures of everyone who was nominated in every category, and I remember saying that that guy was gay.
Let's see. Uh, yeah, I can't really find the name. It's one of the two people who were nominated for Genius Loci. But yes, all three of these films by the gay people are great films. Which
The
three for
name
three.
is Amari Avis. I don't know how to pronounce that. It's French.
Yeah, we love gay people.
We
And
do.
also, I just want to say that um, I had read one source that had said that Adam Elliott was one of the first people to uh thank their partner while on stage, accepting their Academy Award, and that is like to say one of the first is very vague, but I look through like acceptance speeches of like people of like gay winners and everything, and I'm pretty sure he's like the fifth or the sixth, and the first one was in the '80s, so it's just like it's a bit late for that.
Yeah.
It's just like it, but yeah, I'll go into that more probably in the bonus episode because I think that's a just listing the different examples. I think that's worth going into it on its own time. Um, and plus, I really need to add more to those bonus episodes. They always end up like only 10-15 minutes. It's like I want to talk about more things in them. So I'll go through all the different people who named their partners in their Oscar acceptance speeches after that. But anything else you'd like to say about Harvey Krumpet?
No, it's just a really sweet short, and even though it's kind of long, it doesn't feel like it. Like you're never bored watching it.
Mhm.
There is a lot of story turns and reveals and things. So even people with not with a short attention span shouldn't think it's too much.
Mhm. And everyone watch Mirai and Max. It's a great film, as I keep saying. Just very, very emotional, but great and funny. But we will move on to our second nominee, which is Boundin, directed by Bud Luckey and Roger Gould. This is the first and only nomination for Bud Luckey, who is a veteran in the animation industry, and the sixth nomination for Pixar. Luckey was born in Montana in 1934 as William Everett Luckey and served in the Air Force during the Korean War. It was after his service that he went to art school, specifically Chouinard Art Institute, and later University of Southern California, and studied under Disney legend Art Babbitt, and became his assistant after graduation. From there, he had an extensive career as an animator. He worked on a host of commercials, political campaigns, TV shows, segments for Sesame Street, and much more. But he's here with us today because of his work with Pixar. He was hired in 1992 and was the fifth animator they ever hired and was the oldest employee at the company. Bud Luckey remarked that when he was with Sesame Street, he used to teach kids about numbers, and now at Pixar, those same kids are teaching him about computers. His main work was as a character designer, being credited with the designs of many characters, but most famously, Woody from Toy Story. He also has a few significant voice roles, including today's nominee, but also Agent Rick Dicker in The Incredibles and Eeyore in the 2011 Winnie the Pooh film. However, for Incredibles 2, Rick Dicker was recast with Jonathan Banks as Bud Lucky had retired, and on February 24th, 2018, Bud Lucky passed away due to a stroke. The Incredibles 2 was dedicated to him. And on that note, let's go to the short film that is just so wholly Bud Lucky. He wrote the story, the music, the lyrics, designed all the characters, and sang the song. In Boundin, there lived a lamb with a coat of remarkable sheen. It would glint in the sunlight, all sparkly and clean. He used to be something all covered with fluff, and he'd dance in the sunlight and show off his stuff. Then they hauled him away in a manner quite rough, and sheared him and dropped him back in the buff. But bounding up the slope came the great American jackalope. He spots the lamb down on the ground and decides to teach him to bound. I love this film. I am a total sucker for short films that have catchy songs in them, and I'm a big fan of folk music as well. And this is just such a beautiful little piece of just pure fun. It's a cute little story. It's a cute little, like, I don't think this is like a real like folklore story, but it feels like a story that's been passed down through the centuries of like American history, of just like settling in the old west and everything like that. And it just feels so vibrant, and I love the way it looks. I love this little corner of the desert we set ourselves in. I love the way every single character looks. It's just all just pure fun. And it's like, and it says a lot that this is probably one of the most story heavy Pixar shorts, considering like it's still just the most basic kind of like folk tale kind of story, but still, and it's all told through song as well. Is But I just absolutely love the short. The song just plays on loop in my mind, and I can just picture the fucking jackalope just bounding around and everything. And I just have so much love for this. I love the tap dancing that the sheep does at the beginning and later, and does later on as well. It's a great moral and everything. It's all so good, and I can't wait for you to just shit all over the film, Ronaldo. So go ahead.
I'm sorry to But Lucky, but I kind of hated the song. That was like, as you probably noticed, I actually watched this twice today. Because the first time I was just distracted by how much I didn't like the song, and also trying to figure out because the voice sounded familiar and I didn't know who it was. I was even thinking for a second that it was like Tom Hanks or something. I was like, who is this? And then I noticed that I didn't even know like what the story was or what happened. So I watched it again, trying to pay attention to what the story was. And then I liked it even less because I'm sorry to overthink, like to overanalyze this short that probably doesn't mean anything. But like, since this is very clearly made for kids, like it's made in a way that would be enjoyed mostly by children. And stories for children usually have like a story, like a message or something for them. And so I was trying to say, like, what is the message of this? And it's about this lamb that is sheared, and so he gets bullied by his friends because he doesn't have hair. And then he gets depressed. And then this other animal comes and says, like, oh, you should just be happy. And then you'll feel better. And then he starts jumping and he's better. And then, like, because he is confident now, like, people don't make fun of him. I don't know, I thought it was kind of stupid.
I mean, I get that complaint, but also I think there's a little bit of like truth to it. That it's just like you just gotta roll with the punches with life. It's just like sometimes you're in a down point, sometimes you're in an up point. You just gotta go with the flow. Oh, it's just like it. And if like your friends are making fun of you for being naked, just follow Harvie Krumpet's advice and just don't give a shit. Be naked. It's fine. Fine. And just bound around. It's like if they are making fun of you, they're not your real friends. Who gives a shit what they think?
No, but
And
I would be okay with that. The thing is that at the end, he's friends with them again, so it's like, what?
and I think like by the end of it, or like when we get into the story, it's like the gophers or prairie dogs are like just so wowed by his confidence in himself that's like it's not even worth making fun of him anymore. And they're just like, yeah, I guess we're cool with you since we're kind of all stuck here in this little corner of the desert together. Might as well just play nice.
Yeah. But I
It's
also
like
like
co-workers.
I also didn't mind the animation. The animation was actually nice, and I liked like the point where when he starts jumping, and it's like the camera moves with him. I don't know that I thought that was nice looking, but yeah, I was not a fan.
Mhm. Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. The scene where like the camera's like rotating around the scene
Yeah,
as he's like
yeah, yeah,
bouncing around the main central rock formation or whatever. Or
yeah.
it's like, yeah, and that's another thing. It's like the entire thing is set in this little circular desert area, which like yes, I could see complaints from people feeling like, oh, why is this just so small? Oh, but at the same time, it adds this little like stage quality to it, like as if this is being told like maybe around a campfire or something, and it's like we're just like seeing it like through our imaginations. Like you see this little you got this guy singing this little song about a sheep and a jackalope, and it's just like, yeah, I just love folktales. I love folklore. I love like fairy tales and fables and everything. It's just like I love these stories that can like carry such meaning, like be so impactful on the lives of people that they just get like passed through from generation to generation. And I know this isn't really one of those. Like this was just wholly made by Lucky, but he's so perfectly captures that spirit that I just really like find myself just immediately falling in love with it. Which I again I know you disagree with, but let me have this.
I will let you have it. And also, like, I had never in my life heard the word jackalope before, so I had to look it up to see if that was a real thing. Or
Yeah,
like,
it's a mythical creature, so it's part of American folklore.
okay, that's why I didn't know then.
Yeah, yeah, like I wouldn't expect you to know it, but yeah, it's a cool little creature. It's a rabbit with horns.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm looking at pictures of like, yeah.
I I guess we've run our course with this. I just want to say one more thing. I really like the rattlesnake, especially in the beginning parts when it's like when they're all tap dancing or whatever, and they do a really interesting thing like to make the rattlesnake kind of tap dance. It's just like the way the rattlesnake kind of moves. It's just like that's interesting. It's like they had a really tough problem trying to make a rattlesnake tap dance, but they did a good job trying to figure it out. And also,
Ooh.
I watched a short little documentary about the making of the short and who Bud Lucky is, and they did have all the animators had to take tap dance lessons in order to make this, which it's a funny image watching a bunch of computer nerds learn how to tap dance.
Yeah, and I also wanted to say something nice about it, that I didn't like the song, but I did like the way they incorporated the sounds of the animals into the music when he starts dancing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like again, I noticed the rattlesnake rattle, and also the prairie dogs in their little holes and everything. It's all nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll move on to a better Disney produced short film with our third nominee, which is Destino, directed by Dominique Monfredi. This is the first nomination for Monfredi, as well as producer Roy E. Disney, a nephew of Walt Disney and chairman of Disney's feature animation division at this time, and the 45th nomination for Walt Disney Animation. The story of Destino starts way back in the 1940s. During World War II, Salvador Dali lived in the United States, both to avoid the war and to grow his international fame. He was mainly a painter up to this point, but he took many commissions in other fields of work, most famously his work with Alfred Hitchcock on a dream sequence for the film Spellbound. Dali also met with Walt Disney with the idea that they could create a short film together. For 8 months, Dali collaborated with Disney artist John Hench on storyboards for the short film, but Disney was low on cash during and after World War II, so the production ceased. Hench was determined to bring the film to life, animating a 17-second clip as a proof of concept, but again, he was told no. 53 years later, Roy E. Disney was working on his own passion project, Fantasia 2000. He discovered the remains of Destino, found the storyboards and the animation test, and was determined to have it completed. He gave the project to the Disney's French animation studio, the same studio that animated previous nominee Runaway Brain, and put Dominique Monferry as director. With the help of the storyboards and a 94-year-old John Hench to help advise them, they were able to finish the film. It was originally intended to be part of a third Fantasia film called Fantasia 2006, but when that was canceled, Destino and 2 other films were released simply as standalone shorts. I just want to also note that shortly after the film was released, Roy E. Disney left the Disney company due to dissatisfaction with then CEO Michael Eisner and began a campaign to have Eisner ousted. Destino is about, well, it's not really about anything. It's more of a moving art piece as we see a woman dance in this desert landscape in and around some surreal architecture with her and various objects morphing into and out of other things. It's something that needs to be seen to be understood and seen many times at that. Ronaldo, what did you think of Destino?
I loved it. It's very beautiful. And like with shorts, I usually don't care that much about the story because like if it's a short, so you usually don't have time to develop a story. So in animated shorts specifically, I focus more on like the visuals and how they're used. And this is like the a big example of that because the story doesn't really matter. Like at one point, the guy turns into a baseball player and he starts playing with her head. So yeah, so I don't like you said, it doesn't really matter what the story is, but it's like really beautiful to look at. The way that she moves and when she turns into different things, when she moves into the shadow and then she comes up with the shadow dress, and it's just really beautiful to look at. And
Mhm.
it's a really good way to spend 4 minutes.
Yeah, was just absolutely floored by this, and I knew I was getting to. Of course, I've seen this film before, but this rewatch just put it on a whole new level for me. This has become one of my favorite nominees in the category's history, and I just want to briefly say I have one complaint about the film, and that is some very obvious computer generated imagery when a lot of the other sections of the film are animated more in traditional 2D animation. And it's like it's so obvious because the computer graphics, especially at Disney, were not advanced enough at the time to do the things they wanted it to do, especially in a way that would actually blend with the other animation. But with that being said, again, I totally agree with you. It is just such a beautiful piece of imagery. And like while there isn't really a plot to make sense of, I still found myself just so thoroughly emotionally moved just by not only just the beauty of like what I'm seeing, but I feel like my heart just like understood something that my brain couldn't. And I just found myself just so invested because you do have like this female and male figure that are all dancing around, clearly trying to get to one another, trying to meet in the middle, or at least the man is trying to get to the woman. I'm not sure like what her whole deal is, but
Yeah,
it's
but like she's trying to get to him too at some point.
yeah, at some points she is. It's like at one point she goes into like the 2 heads and then becomes a million ballerinas as with orb heads, and it's like, but yeah, it's just so beautiful. I and also the music we have here, which I think was also recorded back in the 1940s, is just such a beautiful piece of music. I immediately went to see if it was on Spotify. It is not, which is very upsetting to me, and I wish I could just listen to this on repeat over and over because it is such a beautiful song. And God, I just have so much I love about this. It is I I'm also just very curious, like what this would have looked like if it was made in the 1940s, because I had sent you a little animatic that was of the storyboards that Dali had originally made. And first off, a lot of the scenes that we see on in the storyboards aren't in this final film, which I thought was interesting. But also, it just shows that it's like this is not really the film that was originally made in the 1940s, but it is just like uh
Inspired
like
by it.
yeah, it's something cobbled together of what they could make of what survived. And it's just like it is, and I it is some attempt. It is an attempt to try and bring this film to life, and it definitely succeeds. But also, I am so curious what that original film would have been if Disney had went ahead with it and like put it in Make My Music or something like that. Uh, it is just, but it is just still this film is still just so beautiful and perfect. I just God, I love it. I love it so much. But it is one of the best nominees in this category, like I said.
I didn't love it as much as you, but I do agree that it's really pretty, really beautiful to look at. It didn't affect me as much as it did you, but I am glad I watched it, and I am glad I watched it again, and I would watch it again. And I think that I also am happy that because I watched it on Disney Plus just for the better quality, and it looks so good. Like if it even has that grain as if it was like shot on film. I don't know if it was, but it just looks great.
Yeah, it's yeah. Everybody who's listening, I think you need to watch this just to see, just for how unique of an experience it really is. Because it's like, when else would Disney have fucking made something like this? Like, imagine if this actually did get released in like 1946 and you watched it before you watched fucking like Dumbo or something. Like I know it wouldn't the timeline doesn't make sense for it to come before Dumbo. Just imagine like you watch this extremely experimental, oh like avant-garde surrealist short film before one of Disney's like standard shtick. It's just like it doesn't make sense that this exists, but it does, and it's great.
Yeah, and they should keep doing that because like most Disney shorts now, like all of them, I don't know if it's all of them, but like most of them are just CG animated, and they should like at least in their shorts try doing more hand-drawn
Mhm.
things.
I think in at least like the the short films that they release as part of whether it's like the little Disney Plus Pixar short, I think that's the Spark shorts, and then Disney also has a short circuit series, both on which are on Disney Plus. And I think all of those are like those have a lot more interesting animation than like more of the traditional short films, the major ones. And actually they did do like a lot of 2D animation for their most recent short film, I forget what it was called, but they just released it on Disney Plus to celebrate the 100th anniversary of Disney, and it features like a lot of like animators coming back to animate the characters that they had originally animated in the original feature films, like the animators for like the genie and Ariel and all these different characters came back to help animate all these different characters in the traditional 2D style, and it's like and like yeah, it's not like the interesting animation that we get here. It's not even the uh mix of 2D and 3D animation that we saw in like Paperman or something like that. It's but still, Disney, do more different stuff, please. I know that's not exactly the best money making strategy. It's not going to get you the
They have
billion.
the money, they can afford to lose that.
Yeah, but they always want more, Ronaldo. They need more. Like like a squirrel that wants acorns. It always needs more. Eh, but yes, Disney, do interesting things, please.
That was a good transition.
Yeah. I, I guess it is time to move on to our fourth nominee, which is Gone Nutty, directed by Carl Saldana. This is the first and only nomination for Saldana, as well as producer John C. Duncan. The second nomination for Blue Sky Animation, previously winning for the film Bunny, and the first nomination for Scrat. Yes, Scrat, the squirrel creature from Ice Age who tries to get the acorn. He has multiple Oscar nominations. And he's also voiced by Oscar winner Chris Wedge, the man who directed Bunny and the original Ice Age. Our two nominees, Saldana and Duncan, are both big names at Blue Sky Studios, with Saldana directing and Duncan producing various films. And their stories, like Chris Wedge, when we discussed him a few years ago, are pretty stagnant with Blue Sky until Blue Sky gets shut down after Disney purchased them. While Wedge has gone on to Annapurna Studios with many former Blue Sky animators, Saldana went to Columbia Pictures to work on a feature-length adaptation of Harold and the Purple Crayon, which is due to release in 2024. Duncan, however, is as a supervising producer on the TV show Invincible, as well as directing the Disney Plus original film, The Ice Age Adventures of Buck Wild. Now, let's talk about Scrat. I'll leave some of his details for his next nomination, but for now, the character's origins are unclear. Multiple people are credited with originating the idea of Scrat, from the character designer Peter DeSev, the young daughter of Michael J. Wilson, and fashion designer Ivy Supersonic. The Supersonic story is actually very interesting, as she allegedly developed this design of a squirrel rat combo that she called Scrat, spelled Sqrat, which she pitched to many different studios to be turned into an animated show or movie, with Tommy Lee voicing the character. This included Blue Sky Studios, who rejected the idea, but when she heard about Ice Age featuring a character with a very similar name, she sued them. The legal battle took two forms: one for the copyright of the character of Scrat as seen in the Ice Age movies and its similarity to Supersonic Scrat, and the trademark for the name Scrat, both versions with the C or the Q. The copyright battle ended quite easily. It was determined that the Ice Age character, regardless of whether it originated with Supersonic's character, which itself turned out to be stolen clip art, was distinct enough to be owned by Blue Sky. However, the name trademark did not reach a conclusion for decades. An endless parade of suits and countersuits over usage of the Scrat name came and went, but nothing ever stuck. Supersonic couldn't stop Blue Sky from using the character, but Blue Sky couldn't get the official trademark for Scrat. But this all ended after Disney bought the company. They met with Ivy Supersonic and made a deal where she has the trademark for the Sqrat name, while they have the Scrat name. Ivy Supersonic agreed to the deal, but she still tried to sue Disney when they made a new Scrat TV show for Disney Plus that featured his name in the title. In my opinion, I don't believe Ivy Supersonic's original character ever made it to the Ice Age development room, and it was just a case of two similar ideas happening independently of each other. But that is all beside the point. Gone Nutty was commissioned after an early trailer for Ice Age, which prominently featured Scrat, got incredibly good reactions, and the studio wanted to create a short film around Scrat that was ready in time for the DVD release of the film. And they were successful, as Gone Nutty was part of the Ice Age DVD in 2002, which concerned me, considering it was eligible for the 2003 period, despite it being, of course, released in 2002 on a DVD. This shouldn't happen, and I was determined to find out how this was even possible. And I found my answer in the Academy's rule from this year. The qualifying period for shorts was from November 1st, 2002 until September 30th, 2003. Since the DVD came out on November 26, 2002, that means it must have had a qualifying theatrical run within those 26 days of November. The Academy is so silly sometimes. Gone Nutty features Scrat finding a hollowed out tree filled to the brim with acorns. Gleefully, he places his own acorn into the dense pile, but there's a hole in the tree and all the acorns begin to fall out. Hilarity ensues as Scrat tries to save as many as he can. I have talked for way too long about Scrat of all things. Ronaldo, what did you think of Gone Nutty?
Well, I'll begin talking about Scrat because I watched Ice Age when I was a kid, and I thought that he was annoying. And I always thought that. however, in this short is probably the most interesting I've found him because it was funny after I watched it, I saw your review from today, and I was actually thinking a similar thing. I was like, you already had all these acorns. Why do you need to go out and get another one? And if he had just stayed there, it would have been fine, enjoying all of his acorns, but he always wants to have it, and he never actually eats them. He just wants them to have them, and they're just there. And when he gets them, he doesn't do anything with them. He just goes out and gets more, and that's why trouble comes. But yeah, it's not like very substantial short in a way, but it kind of makes you think. I don't know if that was intentional. And I also like when Once Upon a Dream plays.
Oh yeah, like when he's falling through and it plays Once Upon a Dream from Sleeping Beauty. Or yeah, it is from Sleeping Beauty. But
Yeah.
yeah. Um but yeah, I found myself quite enjoying this, and it's like, and I just want to say that like Scrat usually is portrayed as like immediately trying to eat the acorn he gets, but also is just suddenly prevented from doing so. It's usually about him trying to get that acorn back. And I'm going to talk about like the history of all the different Scrat appearances in the next episode, but I do want to say also that uh one of the I think it was the last thing that Blue Sky made after or before it was shut down by Disney was a little animated clip of Scrat getting an acorn and eating it. And it was uploaded to YouTube with the title The End. And it was like this like bittersweet ending to Blue Sky animation. And it's just like when I found that in my research, I was like, fuck, that's that's oh god, that makes me want to cry. But I'll talk about that more when I talk about No Time for Nuts, I think it's called. But yeah, I like this film. It's a very typical, like it's a very classical kind of animated short nominee where it's very much just a light piece of comedy. You have a character who wants to do a thing, and he tries and tries and tries to do a thing and then doesn't do the thing. It's of the two types of animated short that me and Gordon devised, this is very much a sad man plays music kind of one, because his music is his search for the acorn, his quest to get the acorn, and he is constantly playing that sad, sad song. Yeah,
Hmm.
I really liked it.
There is no big guy, little guy this year.
Nope. Oh wait, actually, hold on. I want to just think about it. There is a big guy and little guy in Boundin, but it's definitely more sad guy plays music. And yeah,
Yeah, because
Harvie
they're
Krumpet,
not against each other. They're not competing.
exactly. And Destino is both, neither at the same time.
Yeah,
And
because it's
then,
kind of sad and there's music.
and Nibbles. Hmm. We'll get to that. We'll talk about that when it's time. We'll think about that when we are talking about the plot there. But yeah, surprisingly, there isn't a big guy, little guy this year. A part of me wants to go back through the other years and like see if there's any other year that doesn't have a big guy, little guy. I imagine there might be a few more like in this modern era and like the 2000s, 2010s, even the 90s, 80s. But
Yeah, especially like this last few years. There's no like they're very different.
mhm. But yeah, back to No Time for Nuts. I really like the gag where
Gun
it's
nutty.
like or like near the end of the film when it's like after he like falls in the ice and all the acorns fall down on him and the one like becomes like an asteroid and like strikes him directly in the face. It's like he climbs out the little hole in the ground and it's like, and you think nothing else could possibly go wrong, but then fucking Pangea turns into all the different continents and leaves him on this little island in the middle of the ocean. And it's like, it's such a beautiful cosmic kind of irony where it's just so
But
massively absurd.
he has one last ray of hope because the acorn that fell down is still there, but it disintegrates.
Hmm. Poor Scrat. He's deterred. He can never get the acorn. Because I was talking about this with some friends, and just like this was about Looney Tunes, but it applies to a lot of like shorts like this, where it's just like in most films, the desire of the main character's wants, is what propels them to eventually get that. It is what propels the story, and eventually, the ending is meant to have them getting what they want or learning not to want it. Meanwhile, in these comedic shorts, that same want or desire, that is punished so severely. And the more you want, the more you'll fail. And only the characters who want nothing will succeed. Like the Roadrunner. He is just a character who runs with not a single thought or desire in his brain. And yet he always defeats the coyote who wants so badly to catch that fucking Roadrunner. And he will fail over and over again because he wants. That's his one crime, to want something.
You could apply it as a Tom and Jerry too.
That's also true. Although Tom and Jerry is a bit more complicated because they do have differing wants among their different shorts. Or it's like they do like to play around with that dynamic a lot. But with Roadrunner Coyote is, I feel, the most pure example. But
Yeah.
yeah, and Scrat, he so desperately wants that fucking acorn, but he can
And he
never have
never
it.
gets it.
Yeah, until he does, in the thing I mentioned. But that's non-canon. Have we run out of stuff to talk about this? Do you have anything else
Well,
you'd like to say?
there isn't that much to talk about because it's very simple story and
Yeah,
yeah, like I
I,
said,
I
I
guess
like Once Upon a Dream
we
and
we stretch it out a bit more than it really should
yeah,
have. I guess.
talk about nihilism.
Yeah. Well, let's just move on to our fifth and final nominee, which is Nibbles, directed by Christopher Hinton. This is Hinton's second and final nomination after previous nominee Blackfly from 1991. If you remember what I said last time about Hinton, I would be surprised because there wasn't much to say, and there isn't much now. Hinton is an animator who doesn't like to be tied down to any one company, always moving freely from place to place. As a Canadian, he has frequented at NFB, but doesn't ever stay there for long and enjoys making stuff on his own, like today's nominee. Beyond this film, however, there isn't much to say, of course. The sources I had say he's quit filmmaking to become a professor at Concordia University, but the more I dig, I believe he's quit that too. You can't keep him anywhere for too long. From what I can tell, he might even be coming back to animation. No major source talks about it, but I found a 2021 film or art installation called A la Cruz de San Se sorry, A la Cruz de San Juntado that he directed and animated. It's less than a minute long, so maybe this was just a one-time thing, or maybe he's got the spark again, but who knows? I certainly don't know. Let's just go back to today's nominee. Nibbles is about a father and his two sons taking a fishing trip, going from Montreal to Lake Kippawa in the summer of 2001, with the opening credits calling it a documentary. The film itself mainly features our three characters eating and drinking in sync as they drive to the lake, briefly fish, and go back home. So, the first thing I want to say about this is that this is a very abrasive, rough, very off-putting kind of movie, which is weird considering it's just meant to be about like a fishing trip, just which is normally portrayed as relaxing or even boring, but it is just so violent in the way it portrays like the car moving from gas station, restaurant to restaurant, and showing us the our three characters all eating and munching and drinking in unison. It's such like loud ways and so it's such like abrasive ways, as I was saying. And it's just like, and then we briefly fish where they still drink a bit and catch a fish, and then they just go back home. And it's just like, it's a very simple short film. It's very It's everything I said, and I liked it. And which I know is weird because everybody else that I see hates this, but for some reason the style of it all really worked for me, even though I can't fathom why he chose to tell this story with that style. When it's like I feel like that style would work a lot better with anything other than a fishing trip, but at the same time, I think in the end the film works as a animated short, and I feel like you're about to disagree with me, Ronaldo.
The thing is that my rating doesn't reflect it, but I actually don't hate this one. And I think that it does have something to say about maybe like the futility of humanity and how all we do is just shit and eat and sleep and wake up and just repeat that all throughout eternity. And that's, I don't know, because maybe that's and how we keep like how grotesque people are in a way, because it's really gross the way that they eat, and also the things that we make, because we also see like the car when they're giving it the gas, when they're pumping the gasoline into it, and it's like eating the thing.
Mhm.
So I don't know, maybe there's something about that that was the reason why they made this. I don't know why specifically a fishing trip, but maybe just like how random it is also shows that anything that we do is kind of gross.
Yeah, yeah,
But yeah, aside from that, I don't really have much to say. The reason why I don't like it is because I think it's ugly.
yeah. It, I think it is just very intentionally like trying to be ugly because I think wait, hearing you talk about, it, I think it's meant to be about like human consumption and just like how like just kind of the absurdity of like for this simple fishing trip to which in its purpose seems to be the search to get one fish from the lake and put it back on the kitchen table at home. And in that journey there is so much food and drink that they eat along the way and back, like that, just to get this one fucking fish, as well as like the car consuming the gasoline and things associated with the negative effects of that. It's just like all this just for one fucking fish, and it's just like yeah, like you were saying, it does show kind of just how fucking awful people are, how fucking disgusting we are, and it's just like yeah, fuck people kind of. Maybe is is this is this sad guy makes music with the music being the sounds of our consumption?
Yes, I would say that this is more That Guy Makes Music
Hmm.
than Big Guy Little Guy.
Yeah, and it's perhaps the saddest of
Even
all
though
because
there
it doesn't
is
know he's
one
sad.
guy and two little guys with his children.
Yes.
But again, they're not competing.
Yeah, they are shown to be completely in sync. So it's really one character that is three parts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was that all we had to say about this? I
I think that that's more than anyone else would have to say about it.
yeah, yeah, like I think if Christoph came on, he would have like a 1 minute rant about how this is so ugly, and then just like have little else to say about it. That isn't just
Yeah.
repeating what he said in that rant. And maybe 2 minutes because he does really hate this one.
Yeah, I
But
saw that. He hates it more than Crunchbird.
yeah, it's just like which this is there's a lot of crunching going on here, so he just hates films that involve crunching noises.
Yeah, and this is going to date the thing, but I know that he was going to see Killers of the Flower Moon today, and he didn't say anything. Like he didn't post a review or anything. So who knows?
Anything could have happened. Like, mate, actually, he just posted a review.
Did it?
Yeah, 4.5 stars.
Oh, good.
We're recording this on October 22nd, 2023. For those out there listening,
But wait, is he awake now?
I guess so. Like, when did you last check?
I don't know.
Okay, so he might have posted this hours ago. But it probably made him stay up late to watch it. So it's just how it is. But anyway, back to Nibbles, which yeah, there just isn't much to say because the film itself is just very stagnant. I guess might be the word. Like it's very much in one state for the entire film, which is showing the whole crunching process. It's not a film that really evolves or tells a whole like
No.
3 act story or anything. It's
Yeah,
just
it's just showing the same thing over and over. And maybe that's intentional too, because it shows how
yeah,
we just do the same thing over and over again.
yeah. It's definitely intentional. Like I respect
Yeah.
this. I can definitely see like artistic intent in this. Like it's not like Christoph is going to eventually hear this episode. And I want to say, like, he complains about a lot of films being ugly, like being like childishly animated, when it's like it's a very clear, intentional style that like adds to the environment of the film and everything like that. Which I I can't like say he's wrong for his taste. But at the same time, I feel like he doesn't give many films the benefit of the doubt if he doesn't like the way they look.
Yeah. Because, like I said, I do see that he had a vision and he probably did everything the way he wanted to make it. And that's great. I just wish I aesthetically enjoyed it more because
Yeah,
it's not just like it looking ugly, but also like the crunching was getting on my nerves, which is probably also intentional, but I can't help how I felt watching it.
yeah. It's not like this is like a Terry tune where it's like the cheapness and ugliness is very much intentionally a cost cutting measure. Or it's just like where it's very intentionally just made to get a profit. There, Christopher Hinton is not a cash grab director, clearly, but he's yeah. This
Anyone
is
who would be a crash grab director would not be making animated shorts.
yeah. Well, well, yeah, not at this day and age. Like in the 19th, like Tom Terry or is his name Tom? I forget. Whoever made Terry tunes, like that's back when short films had some kind of profit in them. But nowadays, it's just like you're not going to see many cash grab people in this field. And I think that's a good place to end our talk on the Nibbles and end our talk on these 5 nominees. And now that we've gone through and talked about them all, let's rank them all. Ronaldo, start us off with your number 5.
Well, my number five actually changed because it used to be um nibbling, but it has to be bounding now.
Ooh, all right. My number 5 is Gone Nutty, which like as you probably heard or me as I discussed these 5 films, I like all of these. I think these are all good films in their own ways. And some of them like kind of bunch in their different parts of my ranking list, but there has to be a number 5, and that number 5 is Gone Nutty, which is just a very simple, standard comedic short that is good. It's funny, but at the same time, I just don't respect it as much as the other 4. Number 4, Ronaldo.
My number four is nibbling,
It's
which again,
it's called
I
Nibbles, first of all.
nibble nibbles, yeah.
Maybe it should be your
Nibbles.
number 5 since you can't remember the title at all. Boundin's left more of an impression.
I guess the title. It's just I don't have the list in front of me. I'm just saying this off the top of my head because I left my phone in another room and I'm too lazy to go get it. So,
It's
um,
okay.
Nibbles is four
Uh,
because at least it had a vision of something to say, and I appreciate that, even if I didn't like it.
Boundin has a vision too.
I
anyway,
guess.
anyway, my number 4 is also Nibbles, which again I enjoy the film. I enjoy its rough and abrasive style, but at the same time, it's like I adore the other 3 films, and Nibbles is not quite in adoration territory, so it ends up at number 4. Number 3,
Got Nutty. I've
interesting.
already said anything that I wanted to say, and it's fine. Like I didn't dislike it. I didn't really like it that much. It's just fine. So like right in the middle.
And my number three is Boundin. And again, I love every single aspect of this film. I think is just it thoroughly executes perfect everything it wants to do in a great way. And I love the story, I love the music, I love the characters. It's all just so perfectly fun. And I want to bound now. I want to jump around, but I can't bound the same way a uh, jackalope does. So what's the point of living? Number two.
Number two, like this is where it gets tough because before I had a very clear choice, but now because I like both of them about equally for very different reasons. Because like I said, well, we were talking about Destino, like I appreciate animated shorts mostly for the visuals and how the visuals are used. But Harvie Krumpet has like an actual story and it's like really well written and has good characters. So like on a narrative level, I really like Harvie Krumpet more, but on a visual level, I like Destino more. So I'm just going to say like by a very short margin, Destino is my number two and Harvie Krumpet is my winner, but I really love both.
My number two is Harvey Krumpet, which, as I was saying, it's I wasn't it wasn't as close for me as it was for you, but at the same time, Harvey Krumpet is just a great short film. I found a lot more to love in it than I did the first time, which I still enjoyed it the first time, but it wasn't one of my favorite winners of the decade. Meanwhile, here it is one of my favorite winners of the decade, and it is just uh such a great example of why Adam Elliott is one of our great animators nowadays. He tells these stories in such distinct ways that tell these these heart-wrenching stories in ways that you can still have fun and laugh with. And it's just like they're stories about like these people given rotten hands in life, but still finding ways is to really live life in a way that suits them. And just like where it, I love Adam Elliott. I'm so excited for his next movie, which I didn't even know was a thing until I was doing the research for this. So very excited, Adam. Love your work. Please keep making stuff. And I guess since you already said your number one, I'll just talk about Destino a little bit too, which, as I was saying, so fucking gorgeous, so thoroughly moving, such a perfect. Not only like I said this in my letterbox review, but not only is it like a ballet and just the way we see the characters move and just like an examination of the bodies in motion, but it treats animation itself like a ballet and just watching these images morph and move in such pristine, perfect ways. Hey, and it's like and just adding on just all the surreal elements to it just makes it all just such a fantastic piece of animation. One of my favorite short films, animated short films ever made. And that's
Yeah,
it.
and
That's what were you gonna say?
no, I was gonna say that there's something I forgot to say while we were talking about Harvey Krumpet, but something else that makes me really love it is that the music for the opening credits is the same music that opens Ordinary People, which I
Oh
noticed
yeah,
this time,
uh,
and that kind of made me tear up.
yeah, Canon and D, or
Sorry?
Pachelbel's Canon as it's called also.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, a song that makes cello players want to cry. But anyway, before we end our show, are there any final thoughts you'd like to share, Ronaldo, or anything you'd like to promote?
No, anything that I wanted to share, just that this was a very diverse year. All of them nominees have very different animation styles, like even the two 3D animated ones look very different. And to promote, I don't really have anything. Like I'm on Twitter, but I haven't been very active recently. So if you want to follow me, it's R Santana 2024. And I think I'm going to be more active now that we're probably in like Oscar season, things like that.
Oh yeah. as more and more films go online and everything, it's just going to be
Yeah, like Anatomy of a Fall recently.
mhm.
That's great.
And like the Gotham Awards are right around the corner, the start of award season, and just Oscar buzz and everything. It's gonna be an interesting season. Like I feel like I part of me is worried that like Oppenheimer is just going to be the movie the whole season, and it's
I
just going to
hope
be
not.
very boring. But at the same time, I think there's enough room for like for some interesting stuff, at least like the acting categories. I think that could be really interesting. But we just gotta wait and see. Hmm.
Yeah, I
But yeah,
think that it could be a good year, but it could also be boring. I'm hoping that it's fun. And it'll be fun for a while until it's not, like most years.
yeah, it's like by the time we get into like March or whatever, if I remember correctly, it is going to be in March this year.
Yeah, but I think it's going to be early March.
Okay, so February then. By February, we are going to be so tired, and there's going to be oh, the Barbie and Oppenheimer discourse is going to get reach ahead, and then like
I just know that they're going to do like the whole directors and directors thing. They're going to get Greta and Nolan.
mhm. Oh yeah, oh yeah. That's actually going to be fun. It's going to like to see them like finally
Acknowledge it.
yeah, like have a discussion about it. Specifically Nolan, because he's been kind of like, I don't like that you're associating this with that movie with my movie.
Yeah, and he was the one who benefited the most because Oppenheimer would not have made nearly as much money as it did without that.
Mhm. Yeah, it's like they probably both benefited from the memes, but Oppenheimer definitely probably benefited a lot more. But yeah, I'm I'm also just curious about like there's all these like kind of weird out like movies that the Academy wouldn't normally like be into, but at the same time, it's just like maybe they
Like I
will
love us
be.
strangers.
Yeah, or or even like Poor Things, which I people keep saying like that's like one of the Oscar contenders, like that's a Best Picture contender, and it's just like everything I see and hear about it makes it seem not. It seems like it's gonna be like a 63% on Rotten Tomatoes or something. But at the same time, I
Like at
just
a
talk
hundred.
yeah, it is just like people constantly are just like loving it, and it's just like I just got to wait to see it for myself, I guess. It's just like and I also kind of felt this way about The Favorite too, but in a lesser extent. It's just like Yorgos Lanthimos movies have weird advertising campaigns that like it's impossible to really capture the feelings of his movies, but I think especially in like trailers, you can never really tell how good his movies are going to be.
And like it's always weird to think that The Lobster is an Oscar nominated movie.
Wait, what did The Lobster get an Oscar? Was it screenplay?
Screenplay, yeah.
Oh, I completely forgot about that.
Yeah,
Have
that's
all his movies been Oscar nominated? Oh, Killing of the Sacred
well,
Deer wasn't.
and yeah, that wasn't and like everything. Well, Alps
Like
wasn't
Dogtooth got the
nominated.
international film nominee.
Yeah, yeah. Which is
But
also very bizarre. So like they like him.
yeah, they're a fan of him, and even though that The Favorite only won one of its 11, I think it was 11
Uh,
nominations.
yeah.
It's
No, it was 10. 10.
oh 10. Okay, but yeah. Um. Well, thank you, Ronaldo, for coming on the show, and thank you, listener, for tuning in. This has been the short podcast about short films. Until next time, goodbye.